Zachary Conan.
Incorrect.
All right, we just watched The Artist 2011 silent film. This is a love letter to basically everything I love about classic cinema, specifically silent cinema and early 30s talkie cinema. It is a love letter. Michel, the director, must have the same exact kind of love and obsession I do, only his is insanely well-focused in a sort of beautiful monomania. I really love this film. In fact, this was one of my favorite theater experiences ever. I saw this back in 2011 and with such a respectful audience, and it was just such a great experience seeing this on the big screen. The moments where the score would stop abruptly and you could just hear people kind of like with bated breath waiting for the next thing to happen or just watching the events unfolding on screen. Silent movies are some of my favorite movies ever made. I really like the era. I really like the style. I see silent movies as something kind of separate from regular films. So I think they had a different language. They were completely about visual information. A lot of people call silent cinema pure cinema, and I wouldn't exactly argue with them because it is purely visual. And The Artist is a purely visual film, but I think more than that, and most importantly, Michel's masterpiece, The Artist, is not only a purely visual film, it's a purely joyous and happy and moving and loving film. It's a very tender masterpiece, maybe one of the most tender films made in the last 10 years, because it really is in debt, in tribute to the history of its own form. What did you think of the film, Craig?
I was pleasantly shocked. When the movie first started off, it was kind of hard for me to... It had a hard time keeping my attention.
I was also being a motor mouth, though, and being like, this is the reference of that, that's the reference to that. I had to shut up for a second and keep... Yes, audience, I am annoying like that. I will say every reference that's appearing on screen until I learn to shut up. Sorry.
But the movie did grab me and just captivate me. Like, even later on in the movie, Zach said something and he was like, what do you think about that? And I was like, I'm sorry, I was paying attention to the movie.
Exactly.
It's like, it's a silent movie.
Oh, I turned it up several times and I can't exactly tell you why, but I felt engrossed in it. And what you were just saying gives me another word, maybe the best word to describe the appeal of this movie. Irresistible movie. I think it's very charming.
I did think of something right after the movie ended, and it kind of wraps up why I think this movie is so brilliant. And it's because it took a silent movie to give so much importance to, sound.
Yeah.
And just...
And almost vice versa, too.
Yeah. It was so clever. The whole movie was just cleverly done. There were so many things that were suddenly, not suddenly.
Suddenly as well, probably.
There was a lot of subtle information that I feel like a lot of movies would have hand-fed you, and this movie didn't, but it's because it felt like the movie trusted that you saw what was going on.
Yeah, Michel doesn't think you're stupid. And silent movies didn't think their audience were simpletons.
When this guy comes up and opens this case with pearls in it, the camera doesn't zoom in on the pearls like you would assume it would. It simply just allows you to see this guy's hands are moving and opening something. You obviously are looking at that like anyone would. We track motion. It's just natural.
There are so many instances of that kind of nuance, that kind of subtlety with its visual information that we would be here forever listing them. One of my favorite ones is the first time you see that hear no evil, speak no evil kind of statue set that he has where it's a clock piece and the clock is on the the Speak No Evil one, because it's about losing your speech in the artistic world. You see it behind Jean Dujardin's character, George Valentine. You see it behind him, and it's not in focus, but you can make it out. And when you see it in focus is when he's auctioning off his possessions.
Yeah.
And that's another scenario where a literal metaphor is being used subtly.
And you bringing up that prop as an example brings up another point. The movie, as where it does give a lot of subtle information and it trusts that you'll understand it, it also understands that if you didn't get it the first time, they'll give it to you again, but it'll still be even more subtle the second time.
And it doesn't feel like a handout. It doesn't feel like, oh, you missed it? Well, here you go. Catch up now, buddy. It's not like that.
No, because again, with the scene with the pearls, if you don't understand why the pearls are being shown, you'll see the actress get upset and leave the room, and then you're like, oh, okay, I get it now. But for me, like, when I saw the pearls, I immediately understood, okay, it's showing her that there's a relationship that he's involved in, but then it reinforces it by having her leave the room upset. So the movie's really good at giving you plenty of information to keep you following along without putting anything in your face. And the only time they technically put anything in your face is with the dialogue cards, but that's because that's things that you need to know. But, and that's another point. They don't overwhelm the movie with dialogue cards.
And I think that it's made so perfectly and it's so tight that you can remove basically every title card and you can still understand basically the gist of what's going on, because I think the story is told so well and so wonderfully, purely in a visual sense. And the only times where it does highlight something that you must read or must understand, it has an absurdist self-awareness to it, because they're pointing at huge headlines on newspapers. Like, it's an absurdist self-awareness at that point. Now, Michel Hazanavicius, fuck that name, Michel is a genius in this film. And I think that everything is done by him flawlessly. Like, he did everything visual basically perfectly. There's really nothing wrong that he did. Even what seemed like an extraneous scene earlier, where it's where the romance is first starting between George and Peppy, the retakes that while they're not boring to watch because they have their own narrative flow as well, with it being kind of cute and tongue-in-cheek and them laughing, and it basically goes on until he realizes he's developing true feelings for her and has a very straight and stoic face and walks away. Even has its own like narrative compound unit forming in within those takes. Even if they feel long, he calls back to it near the end of the film in the final act with her looking at the actual reel of film, which is the only reel that he had to save, was that test footage from that film where he first fell in love with her and knew that he was in love with her, and he had to save it from the burning house. And it doesn't, and that almost, if you thought that earlier scene was extraneous or went on too long, it completely legitimizes it as a perfect poetic moment.
It was a great payoff, because it was almost like it was the perfect empathetic moment, I guess. I think maybe we should mention our favorite scenes if you have one. I definitely have one.
We got a lot to go into still. You go first on the favorite scene.
I would have to say my favorite scene was when he could only see her legs and they started dancing together.
That was such a clever part.
That was a really, really good scene. Like, if this was an insanely popular movie, that would be the scene this movie was probably known for.
I mean, in all honesty, there's probably so many incredibly clever, visual, cute, and tender parts of the film that are like that it just had too many of them, so no one could single out just one, and that's why the film is almost becoming forgotten. Well, in true silent film forgotten fashion. Like, that is such a good part. I love that part so much. And that's really where the tenderness first comes out, too. Because then you realize, oh, that's really where the French sensibility comes out as well, because Michel is obviously a very French filmmaker, and Jean Dujardin is a very French actor. And that's where that kind of French romantic sensibility comes along. That like was really popularized by filmmakers like Francois Truffaut, or in more modern films like Junet's Amélie had that really tender, really charming, irresistible quality to it. And that's that first time you see that French sensibility, that French take on silent romantic films, is when they see their legs and they start tap dancing together. Which, what does that do, Craig? It completely mirrors the ending of this film as well.
Oh, wow. That's true.
And that's perfectly bookended. And I mean, it's absolutely wonderful that way. My favorite scene, I have two, and they are equal in my mind. The first one is one of those kind of beautiful romantic just moments where Berenice Bejo's character, Peppy Miller, is in George Valentine's dressing room and sees his hat and coat on a rack, and she starts caressing it, or like, and puts her arm through the coat arm, through the jacket arm, and like wraps it around her as if it's a male hand, like she's being caressed by like the ghost of this figure, by like the presence of this figure. And it's so well done, like pantomimed by Bejo, that it really does look kind of real in a very strange, magical kind of way. Like she really acted it out perfectly well. Like it does seem like someone else's arm is on her, perfectly framed, and one of those just great ideas that Michel was. That must have felt like a lightning bolt of inspiration when he came up with these ideas. Like, oh my god, if I come up with something really, really interesting for each act or each tableau, which it's funny that it is set up in a tableau model, I guess the way most silent movies were set up, that his film will work. And my other favorite scene is, I don't know if you can hear this, audience, but it begins like this. Him putting down a coffee mug on the table, and we have a very hallucinatory sound sequence.
Actually, I might have to agree with that being my favorite scene, because I remember that whole...
You want to break down that
whole
sequence
dream sequence was just... It blew me away. That's the moment I decided that I loved this movie.
I'm so happy you loved this movie. That makes me feel so good.
Up until then, I was like, this is a fun movie. And then that dream sequence happened, and I was like, holy shit, this movie's got a lot to say.
You want to break that down real quick? Just a basic breakdown?
It was fantastic. He places down the cup, and he's a little surprised, and then he places down the cup again, and he just starts knocking things over because he hears everything. But whenever he tries to scream, he can't make a sound, and I immediately understood what it meant. Like, he is losing his voice in his own world, because he's in his dressing room, his own dressing room, and he's losing his own voice. And then he goes outside and sees all these extras dressed as clowns laughing out loud, and he can hear them, but he can't hear himself. And it's like all these clowns are...
And it's not just clowns, they are extras from his own film, and they keep multiplying and multiplying, which not only highlight the amount of people who he feels are laughing at him, but also signify his own irrelevancy, kind of multiplying, like in real time, extremely fast. Because even if you don't know anything about silent movies, you are familiar with how many silent film gods and goddesses completely vanished when talkies came along. There are very few silent actors who are able to hang on. Charlie Chaplin and Greta Garbo are the biggest ones that come to mind, and that's because Charlie Chaplin never spoke until he had something incredibly important to say in The Great Dictator, and that was not until the 40s. I think 41 was when The Great Dictator came out. He was incredibly stubborn before that, almost like this guy, like, I'm going to make my own whatever. And Greta Garbo is not only insanely attractive to look at, but she had a smoky, husky, Swedish voice, that avant to be alone, like that you couldn't resist. Her voice carried over well. That dream sequence is so interesting to me as well, because the metaphors are so unique, because when he's in his room, the phone's ringing, and I feel like the future is calling, the future is calling. And not only are you not picking up the phone, but even if you did, you don't have the ability of speech. Even if you did, you would have nothing to say to it, to this next epoch within your art form. I think this film that says a lot about art commentary, and it wouldn't be incorrect to view it as specifically about what it's about, silent movies conflicting with sound pictures. But you can transfer that message over to any art that has been made obsolete by new technology, right, Craig? Like that commentary on art could be carried over to our most modern age. And this is what happens. Do you think that it's trying to say a grander idea about art? Like, what makes Jean Dujardin, what makes George Valentine an artist in this film?
Oh, man. That's like asking someone to define what an artist is. But
I think this film tries to define what an artist is, and to me, okay, listener, viewer, I hate it when I hate the word artist. For some reason, I've always had like a apprehension to the pretension of that signifier of that label. And I think that this film perfectly, for me, adequately describes what an artist is. An artist is flawed. An artist is made irrelevant by his own art, by the own evolution of his own art. But an artist is also someone who has a blind integrity and a stubbornness, a rebellion, a truthfulness, and a refusal to compromise himself, even in the face of absolute irrelevancy and silence. And that's what I consider to be an artist. And I also consider, see, it's really tongue-in-cheek and funny because the end of this film, you think he's full of integrity and you think he's full of all this power. And at the end of the film, he has a line of dialogue, which is, with pleasure. But his voice has such a thick accent, it is, with pleasure. So then you're left to say, oh, he might not have done a speech test, but if he did, he would have failed it. He wouldn't have become a talkie star anyway, because his voice is unattractive to listen to and would ruin and conflict with the image that is George Valentine. But it clashes, because I think a true artist is not supposed to make sense. It's supposed to be full of contradictions, but contradictions of integrity, not contradictions of status.
yeah, and it is, as far as like an artist goes, like if this was a film about someone being excited about this new step in film, like talkies are being made and they're just like, wow, this is amazing, and then they try to grow with it, that person could very well be an artist. So it's not just a matter of sticking true to your guns, it's sticking true to your heart.
Yeah.
So,
and your art.
Yeah. So
being the true bearer of your art.
You can't have heart without art.
Yeah, I know. I felt kind of lame adding that to that, but like it's true. It's true. The heartist.
I'm leaving.
Ah!
All right. But yeah, fantastic film.
So good. What did you think of the way that the relationship? And let's not. We can view it romantically if we want to. I think that Jean Dujardin and Berenice Bejo had wonderful chemistry together. But as art commentary, if we're viewing this through the analytical lens of commentary on art and artists, as we definitely should, as a tribute to art and artists, to forms of expression, what do you think of the relationship between Pepe and George? And the way that the mutual respect, but the mutual fascination and attraction with each other. These people, talkies and sound, are immediately attracted to each other, but one is destined to make the other one obsolete, to basically kill the other. But what complicates this relationship and makes it romanticist is the fact that talkies, this particular symbol of a talkie, is devoted to this older version of its art and needs to revitalize its career, needs to make sure that it is happy, because that older version completely influenced this version and gave this version what it needed to succeed, the beauty mark on her face. Even if it was artificial, it knew exactly what to... what you need is something that no one else has. And I guess that's also what makes you an artist as well. But what do you think of that relationship between the two? If we're looking at them as art forms, the way that the newer art form looks at the older art form and the other way around. Because I think that was really complicated and nice.
I love how you asked a question and then answer everything.
Well, I had to give my own... Yeah, I do that a lot, but like I figured you're going to give your 2 cents, and if I give my 2 cents in the question, I don't have to do that later.
True. I think the only thing that really confused me about the metaphor of it all was at the end where it almost felt like there was a compromise. I don't know.
Because maybe that's what you need.
Well, yeah. Like, it's like we were saying
about... But a compromise
about,
while keeping your integrity.
And I don't want to go too off topic because this could be its own discussion someday, maybe. But we did mention how 3D animation kind of just
Oh, it killed traditional animation.
Yeah, it just pushed it out of the way and made it irrelevant to a lot of people.
Well, that's a great analog for this relationship.
Yep,
right?
And
I've seen CGI animation that does appear to be in part tributing or at least acknowledging or incorporating some of the techniques used by traditional animators inside of their own films, and I think that benefits that particular CGI based film. I think it benefits it. I think it gives it more layers, and I think it gives it also this kind of tenderness that exists between art forms.
And what we were saying about the whole similarity is, what can you do? It's like you can't blame the fans. You can't blame the medium. You can't blame really anything. It's just happening. And I think this movie was kind of like a good portrayal of just dealing with this big change.
Exactly. When you are a status, when you are an icon, and then you wake up the next morning, and not only are you not that status, and that you as an icon has been dethroned, not only that, but the entire art form in which you perfectly expressed yourself, and that meant so much to everyone else, overnight is nothing anymore. And that's the way talkies were. That's the way they were. And that's the way it is when new game consoles come out. Immediately, that older game console is now just for niche collectors and, retro gamers. That's all that it's for immediately. Technology and art moves so fast. And we don't think about those who are truly affected. And those who are truly affected are the progenitors, are the pioneers of the art form itself, who we need to give tribute to, who we need to keep in our hearts, and who we need to keep somehow on screen or on that mural. We have to keep them there somehow.
Yeah, it's like...
Because art is all connected. All art wants to feel independent of all other art and feel like it stands on its own, but that's not the way the human condition is. That's not the way our shared existence works, and therefore that is not the way that art works. All art is linked and interconnected with all other kinds of art, and that's what I believe Peggy Miller was always cognizant of, because she knew she would never be where she was if it were not for what she saw and what she gained from George Valentine's just raw presence and charisma, whereas George Valentine had to learn that over time.
Yeah, it's like these people, terraformed.
Terraformed is a really good word
they
for it.
They terraformed a swamp, and then all these people build buildings on it, and the buildings get named after those people, and it's like no one recognizes the person who terraformed the swamp.
Well, it's prettier than a swamp.
Well, I'm saying what I mean is
I get what you mean.
Beforehand was a swamp, and then they turned it into this beautiful.
No one knows who the architects are. They all know whose names on the whoever's name was on the board at the time.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Let's just go also... Okay, so Michel Hazanavicius, I think, earned his Best Director Oscar. Do you agree? I think it was wonderfully directed.
That movie was... I'm just going to keep saying the same word. Fantastic.
I think it's one of the most well-deserved Best Director Oscars ever handed out by that joke of an Academy. I think it's one of the most well-deserved Oscars ever given at the Academy Awards. This is one of the best directed films of the last 20 years. It's really well put together. It is surprisingly... Every time he shows his genius, and you're like, oh, he is a good director, but he never stops impressing you and going out of his way. At the end of the movie, when they're doing their tap dances, then... Sorry, I should stop smoking. Now I'm coughing just from doing that. But when they're out of breath staring at the camera for that elongated amount of time, I feel like that's Michel also going like, dude, I am exhausted after bending my back, breaking my artistic back to show you, to capture all this for you. So you believe that that his praise was well-deserved like I do?
Oh, yeah. I mean, if you ever have a hard time describing to someone what you mean by a love letter, just show him this movie.
I do have a hard time, by the way. I have fucking 40 plus videos on my channel called Love Letters, and I still get comments like, is this a review? If this is a review, it's a bad review. I'm like, well, no, it's not a review. It's a love letter, but I'm sure you've never gotten one or written one in your life by the tone of your comment. But yeah, that's perfect. This is the ultimate love letter to film. It's the ultimate tribute to a film, and it owes a lot to King Vidor. One of my favorite silent films is Show People, which is also a love letter to the silent era, only that film was made during the silent era starring Marion Davies. So this film does owe a lot to King Vidor's film. And we're going to jump into Jean Dujardin's performance. And in the middle of the film, we took a break, and I had this huge, amazing silent film hardcover, almost textbook. It's an amazing book, and I went through it and showed Craig, really who I think the three bases of the character of George Valentine were, and that's obviously Rudolph Valentino, the original sex symbol. I showed him Rudolph, and then I showed him John Gilbert. I believe there's a lot of John Gilbert in George Valentine, and then most importantly,
most obviously
Douglas Fairbanks. Because, I mean, the Mask of Zorro and most of those swashbuckling adventure epics with his goofy grin, charisma, and just...
The mustache.
I mean, most obviously is Douglas Fairbanks in this film. And I had to show that to Craig, and Craig, I saw his eyes immediately light up and be like, yep, this is who I'm watching. This is it, because he's wearing the exact same outfit from this picture that's featured in the book. It's exactly him. And even his posturing, there's another picture of him with his wife, Mary Pickford, in there, and he's leaning over her and smiling. And it's wonderful, because I think Jean Dujardin, I think he earned his Oscar as well. I think Michel is the true brilliance of this film, but I don't think he could have picked a better star for it as well, because it's a French actor. The American audiences, the world audiences were not very familiar with him, so he was able to be this new character. He was able to completely craft a performance for us stupid American people, without associating him with other roles. So he really became this guy.
Yeah,
who seemed out of time.
Outside of the really recognizable actors in this movie, which there wasn't a whole bunch.
Well, we'll get into them after our main people.
What I'm saying is, if you were to walk into the room while someone was watching this movie, you could very well be convinced that it's just an old silent.
And I feel that was on purpose, because judging by the other recognizable actors, Michel definitely could have gotten George Clooney to do this movie. I mean, I'm sure he could have, based on the fact that he got other American actors to be in this movie that we definitely recognize from famous films. We'll go into them now. We saw John Goodman, and we saw James Cromwell, who was awesome. James Cromwell was his driver, and we both loved James Cromwell. Got a great face for silent movies. I think John Goodman has a great energy for silent movies, and saw the great British actor Malcolm McDowell in a scene as well. There are a lot of great recognizable actors in this film. And Jean Dujardin looks like a man out of time, but I loved how overwhelming he was with his charisma and all the pathos, all the joy, everything. He was able to express it like a true silent film actor.
And it was great on two behalves, because one, as a whole, the entire cast was just really, really well done, because the visual information they were able to put off was just amazing. But seeing these actors that you're used to seeing speak, and John Goodman is known for his voice.
Yes,
John Goodman is very well known for his voice.
You're right.
Putting him into a silent film, you recognize so much about how amazing of an actor he is when you take away one of his most recognizable features, because he still stands so heavily.
Malcolm McDowell is another one who's known for his voice, and that works the same way.
The information that he can give you with his eyes alone, I feel like they could have zoomed in on his eyes and you would have understood everything that was going through his mind.
Well, Missy Pyle's another one.
Wow.
And also, what I loved about what you just said that clicked in my brain for the brilliance of casting an actor who is not incredibly well known outside of France is that you just said, we know what John Goodman sounds like. We know what James Cromwell and Malcolm McDowell sound like, and we can utilize that in our brains when we're imagining what they're saying when they're speaking without title cards.
Yeah,
but we don't know what Jean Dujardin sounds like. So during this entire film, we're not thinking about the fact that he cannot speak because his accent is like too muddled. We think he sounds fine. We think he sounds the way he looks, which is just handsome and American and like just whatever. You just think he sounds like the silent film star and god that he was until the end of the film. So that's another brilliant part of casting him, because if they cast George Clooney, we know what he sounds like, you know?
And the best performance of the whole film is the dog.
I was gonna make that joke. I was gonna go Uggy. Time for the best performance.
Uggy's definitely the best performance. I'm sorry I took that away from you.
I was actually gonna make that joke after we talked about Berenice Bejo, who played Peppy Miller. What did you think of her? I thought she was, I've said irresistible a lot, but this woman was irresistibly cute, and she met Jean Dujardin on every level of charm and charisma, but in a feminine way.
Yeah, she just, like, I thought she was insanely adorable.
Yeah,
the whole
that's
film.
where that French sensibility from Michel comes in, and where her Latina
her spunk
appeal is. Spunk, definitely.
Her spunk was just amazing. Very charismatic. Like, I think that's probably something that's easier to pick up on in a silent film than in a, I guess we could call them talkies for right now.
That's what they are. Fuck them.
But yeah, it's so much easier to pick up on visual charisma, and that's a lot of we miss out on a lot of that, because now when we think charisma, we think of like Robert Downey Jr. or someone like
I was actually thinking of this with like it just wouldn't work with a huge star, her included, because she is that fresh face to us. She is that new spunky fresh face that we understand why her career is exploding. And I love the visual information. One of the first true montages of visual information is seeing her name rise higher and higher on the opening credits of the films, and seeing her roles become more and more magnified from an extra to a maid to standing there in the same frame with the film's lead to a complete close-up. And you know she's made it with that beauty mark. And you know she's made it. And that's also intercut with George Valentine's failing, crumbling, dispassionate marriage at the same time. And that's a wonderful juxtaposition, and that's a really complicated sequence. That sequence is like that language within a sequence is duplicated time and time again, and that's a very, very impressive.
I also love how it shows her watching his film, and then when he goes outside and sees that giant line, it's to her film. It's like she's not even at the opening night of her own
She's
film.
preoccupied with his, and she's looking at him and crying.
Yep.
That's what's so fascinating about the film, is the relationship between the two arts and the two people, and how they need each other, and how they move each other so deeply in their own way. It's completely fascinating.
I would need more time to think on that one, though, to really fully understand it.
Well, that's also it. The artist, I think, is so ingenious, because I think it is a complicated art film, but I think it's a really a joyful one and a cheerful one, and one that's not pretentious at all. But since it's an art film, it's something that you can think about for a very long time. You can ruminate over that relationship, and I think really glean a lot of positive ideas from it the more you think about it.
And then another great scene was when he sees all the stuff from the auction. She bought it all, and at that point he felt like he was just being coddled, I guess, and being taken care of. And he thought, is this the point that I got to? He felt like he was at his lowest low, and he goes back to his burnt down apartment and pulls out this gun, and it's just a really tense moment. There's the music oh my god, the music did a really good job of making the scene intense. And there's a dog barking, but you can't hear the dog.
Yeah, Ludovic Bors did an incredible job on the music.
I was laying down, but if I was sitting up, I would have been on the edge of my seat, you know.
Very clever misdirection.
Gripping my hands, just worried, and then all of a sudden the title card comes up and just says bang, and then you see her and she's crashed her car and she runs inside, and you expect to see her come in and break down crying seeing his dead body, but no, he obviously pulled the gun out just in time.
Yeah.
And then they make a small little joke out of it, and
yeah, it was such an inspired misdirection, and then that joke doesn't feel contrived at all, and I chuckled. It immediately put me in a better mood because these people are so electric, and the direction is so refined and spot on.
It was really well done. It captured all the charm of the movies from that era while also being a modern film.
Exactly, it's transformative because it stays true to its tribute.
It's great because it feels like a modern movie, but it also feels like a classic.
Exactly, and I even like the technical character of the film.
It's a little different of a definition of a modern classic.
But the technical character of the film as well, the technical virtuosity that's on display here by Michel is still...
We haven't even talked about the cinematography.
Yeah, that's what I'm doing.
Okay.
It's true to tribute as well, because it stays true to the limitations of the time period, because it's mostly a stationary camera. It moves every once in a while, but when it does move, it doesn't feel constrained, but it is, because it is still emulating those silent films. And while he can't do, like long, like tracking shots and steady cam shots and like GoPro shots or anything like that, what he can do is utilize great symmetrical framing. He can utilize Dutch angles. He could utilize slight surrealist motifs that were also true of those days. Jorge Méliès kind of trick photography of having smaller versions of yourself, like extrapolated and superimposed on the bar stool in front of him, like things like that. He worked within the limitations of the silent era and transformed it into something incredibly unique that still felt like almost cutting edge, even, I would say. The cinematography was incredible. The literal metaphors that occupied every single scene, the framing, and the information he was able to tell to you in clever, romantic, inspired, and loving ways was astonishing.
And even the small aspects of it, I don't know if they were intentional. I feel like they were, just because this movie had so much heart put into it. Like, even when you could tell that they were trying to do something a little extra with the camera, it would be imperfect, as if it would have been back then, because like when the camera would move, sometimes when it went from motion to being stationary again, it would have like a little wobble to it.
Yeah.
And I thought that just added to the charm.
Oh, so much. Because it's nuanced, and it's not contrived, and it's not spoon-fed. It's a completely nuanced love letter. I honestly love everything about this movie, and it's what's most unique and important and kind of compelling about the artist is that I believe that my love for it is reciprocated by the film. I feel that the film appreciates me as well, because I feel that's part of the point of the movie is telling its audience that, like, the art appreciates you too.
And what's really great is you being someone who loves silent films, being able to take so much out of this. And then me, I've definitely seen a few, but I can't say that I've watched enough to be any kind of authority on it. And I felt like I took a lot out of this movie. Mm-hmm. It stands very well on a technical standpoint, and it stands very well on a metaphorical standpoint.
On a cinematic standpoint, and on an artistic standpoint.
Yep.
It's as one of the most lovable films, and it's also one of the most loving films. And I, I'm so happy that we can sit here and gush over this film openly and without any apprehension, because it's a film that deserves an amazing amount of love.
I'm completely charmed by it.
And I think that's a good place to wrap it up.
Yep.
We were both completely charmed by it, and we love the artist. And I hope you enjoyed this video, this discussion, and like, comment, subscribe, and share.
And just because it's relevant, if you haven't seen it before, and if you obviously go and watch the artist, but if you're not that familiar with silent films, I believe Zach's actually put together a short video on some silent films that he believes everyone should watch.
It's linked into this video in a card. You probably passed it at this point, but I'll also pop it up right here at the end, but one of the end cards as well that you can click on. It's 7 essential silent films that you can watch, and yeah, I really hope you have a good time. I really hope that if you watch The Artist as one of your first silent films, that it gets you interested in watching others, and I'm sure that Michel Hazanavicius also feels the same way about that as well. He wants you to fall in love with this medium too. And thank you guys for watching. Have a wonderful day. My name's Zachary Conan, and this is Craig. Thank you so much, guys. And we love The Artist.
It's a good film.